Hello, everyone. Sorry for this a bit delay.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very good afternoon to everyone. So we'll still wait for a couple more minutes so the other one to join, and we'll start.
Yes, we have only one participant until now.
Yeah, same. Okay. Good afternoon again. Should we start, or is anyone who knows about the status of the colleagues coming to the? Oh, okay. It's getting better. Well, I was told you yesterday about modern lighting and how the things will be influenced by this values, the contrast and the lighting ratio and the quality of the lights we involve in this lighting approach. And I was telling you something about some shooting or photographing transparent objects, and I will show you what I was thinking about it. So when we shoot or photograph, sorry, I just need to bring it up higher. When we shoot or photograph a transparent object like glasses, we have to pay attention to how the light sources around us will be seen or reflected by this shiny surface. In this case, if you look at the at the glasses, which is of course in focus, you see there's a very cumbersome elements which are seen here, and this is actually the reflection of my porch, because the photograph has been taken outside in the exterior. And what is seen here, it's the porch, which is reflected. There's some trees in the background here, and of course some highlights from the reflections caught in this surface. Also, because the glasses and the reflected surfaces which are here photographed are curved, the angle, the reflection angle, it's bigger than the incident reflective angle on the window. Let's say a surface which is plan, is not curved. So the angle of the reflections is bigger than what we can see with our bare eyes when we look at a straight surface, a plan surface like a window or a glass. The difference is between this one, which is of course a bit underexposed, but that's not a problem because we still see the reflections there, and this one is the way of changing the perspective of how we used to light the object itself or the background itself. So the differences between those two, it's because the light is not aimed to the object itself, like here, and you see the structure of the light source here reflected in this glass and in this glass, and it looks different because the shape of the glass, it's the curve here is more narrower, here it's a little wider. That's why the light source, it's looking a little wider here and narrower here. Actually, the light source is the softbox. I have it here, so it's not square, rectangle. It's a square. The differences between those two, of course, as I told you before, is just how we think to light the transparent objects and how the different approaches is changing it, the way of how those things are looking. So it's either direct light on the objects, or it's a reflected light bounced from the background, and to make it, let's say, not so even, you can add, as you can see it here, the bottom of the glass, it's darker because I add some black material underneath the glasses. Of course, you can also change the exposure and trying to make it differently, as you can see it here. Light it or expose it for something which is more brighter, more neutral, darker, or just for giving it to the glasses a little more shape. Yeah. As you can see it here, just bring it into the composition dark background and not making it any other correction on the front of the glass. We start seeing again the elements which are in the front of the glass. And of course, this is very annoying situation because we're not trying to see or feature the things which are in the front of the glass. We just want to show the property of the surface and not add a little more texture to it, which is very annoying, as I tell you. So on this successive snapshots, we can see how the elements and the let's say the transition from bright to dark background, it's very big. It's an abrupt change of the environment, and then how the changing, of course, the surface and the color of the background also interact with the transparencies and the structure of those transparent things. As well, when we want to shoot liquids, and I told you the liquids has as well different properties when we want to keep the color and the saturation of the hue and the saturation of the liquid. We have to also pay attention to the intensity and the transparencies of the liquid itself, because it can be shown like that or shown like that. And the gradient from darker to brighter densities gives a little more volume to the liquid, despite the structure or the texture of, from the background. This kind of situation, in my opinion, looks more appealing than this one, when we don't have the volume of the liquid and the representation of the color, different saturation of this liquid. So in this one, or in this one either, we don't have what we have it here or here. And this is also very depending on the position of the background and the reflected areas which are seen through the glass. Yeah, getting back to this, which is also a different approach, but as a way of doing it, of course, as harmonical or disharmonical contrast between color and the background. Those things here, neutral, colored, in contrast, of course, and on the same kind of hue. Of course, one of the most interesting one is the one with a little contrast, which is warm, cool background instead of neutral to warm liquid, or just warm to warm background. Again, we still have different tips and tricks when we shoot or see feature some of the liquid environments, which are, of course, as I told you before, seen on bright background, dark background, or mixed background. Yeah. So we can also choose in between, not full dark or full bright. We can make it half and half, or gradient, like darker higher up, brighter down here, or just with some accents, light accents all around. And as you can see it, the differences are very noticeable, from the transparencies and the color of the liquid to, how we can call it, the relevance of the space with how the object is lit, and how the transparencies of the liquid, it's shown in different position of the bounce cards, or the action which we want to, or intend to capture, even if it's a pouring shot or just a snapshot on this kind of situation. Again, I think some differences between the color of the foreground and the background will emphasize a little better the what we want to underline, the liquid here, and not the whole environment. Or here, when the light itself and the effects, the light effect will, as you can see it, will emphasize the action which is taking place here in the foreground. Yeah, this is the brightest part of the exposure time. It wasn't that short. It is focus here, because you can see the liquid here is very sharp, but all the rest are too fast to be caught in the exposure time I used it there. Okay, now the today topic, it's about white balance. The white balance, it's of course one of the main values we have to take in, have in mind when we shoot video, or even when we shoot photographs on other formats than RAW. So when we photograph on the RAW format, which is the biggest file the camera can make it, the white balance is not such an important matter, because we can afterwards change it through the post-production stage. So on color timing session, we can choose whatever white balance we want, and that will change the whole the look of the photograph or the video we shot. So of course, when we think and talk about white balance, we should have in mind different situations which can be. Let me change something here. Sorry. It's not it's very important value, because we can definitely change the feeling and the mood of the scene we photograph or we shoot on video. Sometimes, I mean, all the time, the camera operator or the DOP wants to balance the scene white balance with the camera white balance, but not all the time, because when we think about the white balance as a value which can add some relevance to the scene we shoot, we can see how a bluish tint or an orangey tint can, of course, add different feeling and atmosphere to the composition. So, and that it's of course very it's used in both version, photograph or video. Not sure if you've seen the video, but I will really fast go through these things here, especially when we balance the camera on a certain value, 3200, let's say it, and we change this to a different value like 5600. On the nowadays light sources, we have this possibility to change very easily the color temperature, which it's of course very useful, and it is of course a way of approximate it or make it in a scene, make it as a value, as I told you before, a little warmer or a little cooler, as we want to express or saying something about the space we're shoot on. So the intensity of the lights, they're not such important matter here. It's just the balance between those two values, which are on those opposite ways and positions in light sources white balance, 3200 and 5600. The LED lights, which I'm going to show you later, have this versatility to change this white balance from 2000 kelvins. That's the measure, the value of the color temperature. It's measuring kelvins from the Lord Kelvin, who characterized and discovered this. And the other value, it's 5600, which is the daylight. So the problem is when we try to adjust this value by the eye, we don't have the exact references on how blue or oranges those lights are, because the eye, it's easily adjusting and adapting to this kind of situations. And you'll see how different this picture will look, because the camera was balanced to 3200, and this difference is huge on the photograph, because the camera is not a subjective viewer like all of us are. It's an objective viewer, and it's capturing the right balance and how those lights are seen finally in the final product, being either photograph or video. So is this the first picture was taken by balance, the white balance to indoor to tungsten 3200, and this one is balanced to 5600. So as you can see, the difference between the one before and this one, it's huge when we look at how the color is rendered on the neutral, let's say, surface on the left, because this is the neutral regarding the value of this balance from the light source to the camera, and how this is shown later on this value. Yeah, the let's say how the white is looking neutral or less neutral on this value shows how the camera itself will render those colors when this situation is shot on back to this on a very objective support, like the camera or video camera. Yeah, the photo camera or the video camera. So actually the balance or the unbalance, those kind of light sources will lead us to this kind of atmosphere or mood, which sometimes we want to make it, as I pointed out in the course. I just said it. Of course, when we want to shoot a sunlight or a sunrise, we not do the manual adjustments or automatically white balance adjustments, because that means the atmosphere on the sunrise or the sunset is not going to be golden orangey. It's going to be neutral. So the meaning of shooting a scene or a photograph during those time of the day is just to underline and do something accordingly with the atmosphere we want to show it. Of course, if you want to ask something, feel free. Okay, so as I told you, the one of the other main differences between how we think and make a photo shoot, except and on regard of light sources and stuff, it's the sources itself. So one of the main differences between video and the photo shoot, I'm talking about professional studio photo shoot, is the light sources. The one we use in film and video, they are continuous light sources. So they're not intermittent like flashlights. And in the photo, we use flashlights because we need more intensity and we need more directionality from the light itself, either if it's a small flashlight or it's a big flashlight. And that means sometimes in a bright daylight, a very intense flashlight can even beat the intensity of the sunlight. So that's why sometimes in the photo shoot, we use those flashlights to compare or make a different atmosphere regarding with the ambient light or the lights which we have in the scene we shoot. And I will show you now how this light source here will render the different color temperature, which I already showed you. And how the differences from continuous lighting to the intermittent light will show on video. So those LED lights have been introduced to the professional use of of shooting quite recently, and I will show you what it's. Okay, wait a second. So the technical basis on this lights, it's individual LED lights, which are balanced for RGB values. So you can see it here, I hope. The intensity, and there are 4 LEDs here, 3 RGB and 1 it's white, just to balance the overall unbalanced, let's say, and the peaks and the valleys, which are on the spectral representation in the spectral response of the light. So here on this hue, saturation, intensity values, you can see how the each LED are combining with the other ones to do the colors we want to make it out of this combination. Yeah, so this is red, yellow, orange, yellow, green, cyan, and blue. Doesn't look like that because we just look at some LEDs which are off or on. We're not feeling the real saturation because the main accessory, which is this kind of diffuser, is not in front of the light. Now we can see better how the lights will be changing at a hue, because the component and the composition of those lights here are changing itself through those values. So we're starting from red, yellow, green, green, more green, cyan, blue, red again. And from the other knob, you can change the saturation and value of those according with what we want to make it. Now, as an example of differences between Wait. So let's imagine this is a flashlight. Yeah, that's the main way of doing the photograph in the studio. Yeah, using only flashlight. So I just want to make it less brighter. So this is a flashlight. We can also change the frequency of this to this remote thing. And one of actually what I want to explain is just during this short flash or longer flash, which can be adjusted through the professional flashlights for photo, we need to pay attention to synchronizing the camera exposure time or shutter speed to the intensity and the frequency of this. Okay, I think that's enough, isn't it? Okay, done. Or not. Okay. So this is one of the main differences between continuous lighting, which we use in the film and video, and discontinuous lighting, which is the way of doing the photographs in the studio with flashlights. Of course, the intensity and the shortness of this exposure time on both camera and the flashlight can be set on each of those. Usually, of course, sometimes because the professional photo cameras doesn't have a very short shutter time to be set on the camera. The shortest sometimes it's 1/250 and even longer than that. And then the exposure time is set to the this, let's say, the slave, the shortage of this light being thrown to the subject. So the differences between this kind of exposure time, very short on flashes, and the one we can make it in the film by just changing the shutter angle and the shutter speed is very different, because it's when we want to shoot liquids or very short effects like bullet time effects, we need to make it very short as an exposure time from the flash itself. It's not from the camera. So that's the way of approaching this kind of process on okay. Now, getting further to this explanation here with white balance and how on LED lights we can adjust it very easily, just turning a knob. We'll get a little further here with adjusting the other way around and make it like we do, trying to make, as you can see, the light here is not like on the same structure like the one I showed you. It's just by color. So there are two LED lights, which one is blue, one is red. And through this mixture of the lights, we have the white balance changed to what we want to do. It's warm or daylight. So 3200 or 5600. The differences between this kind of light, which you can see it here, and the one I have it here, it's of course the price and the technology which is included in it. So this light, the one we see in the video, doesn't have such a big range of light effects and possibilities to do strobe or police car or chase car or whatever. In this kind of light, we have those lights and light effects, and we can make it and adjusting these lights very easily. On this one, I just used when I make the photographs. We only have the possibility to wait a second. I just want to get back here to the photograph I took to explain why I did that. Is that things I explained to you about how a soft light being further away from the subject it will change the texture and the quality, even if it's a panel, a light panel like a LED panel, which usually it is very soft, let's say, kind of, yeah. So the surface of that this panel will interfere with the quality of the light. Getting back to the lights, I just have it here in my office. It is, of course, a matter of how many of those is not really. Now you can see how this frost can interfere with the structure of the light. And it's very soft regarding how it was and how it is now. This is without it, and this is with. It's not very, but you can see it here when it's. I'm not covering too much, of course. If it's reviewed this video, you'll understand what I'm talking about regarding the quality of the light and the distance, and how this softness or hardness can be changed through this kind of accessories like frosts, diffusion panels, or bouncing lights of something white surfaces. Anyway, getting back to this light, I have it here. I just wanted to point it out why we have in a market such a wide range of LED lights and accessories, which are, some of them are very expensive, some of them are very cheap. The differences between those lights, it's about the technology which is used in them. So the one you see in the video, it's just B light, B LED light, which is red and blue LEDs. The one I have it here, it's 4 LED lights. It's RGB white. So it has 3 different LEDs for red, green, blue, and 1 white, which is doing the overall filling. And there are even more expensive one like this one, which they have 7 LEDs for each macro block. So each macro block of those panels are formed not out of 4 LEDs, but 7 LEDs, which altogether will do the feeling of changing seamlessly the white balance. And we can also achieve different saturations and values in hue, color, and saturation of each color we want to use it. So that's the main difference between all those. And the range of prices, it's huge. It's starting from, I don't know, a couple $100 and gets to a couple of $1,000. So that's why maybe you can search on the internet on different manufacturers, and you'll see this wide range of prices, which means, of course, just you'll think, why is that big difference between those? And one of the reasons is this: the quality of the lights, what this light is producing is different, as a spectral continuity and values of saturation, hue, and intensity. Okay, let's take a short break for a coffee and refresh, and see you in 10. Okay, so okay, so getting back to this relevant uh, value, which is the white balance. Of course, the white balance can be used very creatively in the picture we want to shoot it, even if it's a photograph or a video. Sometimes, as I told you, we might want to use let's say a bluish tint overall, and that means we have to unbalance the camera from the atmosphere we're shooting, and getting to the lower values on the camera. So as you notice on the video I just showed you, when we balance the camera on the 3200 and the ambient light, it's cooler, the differences between that and the value of the lights will make the image looks very blue. Of course, the intensity of the lights and how that environment is going to be shot will also change the atmosphere and the values of the color and the hues we'll see in the frame. In the specific and in the professional way of doing it, we have three separate time of the day which can be used creatively different. So we have the magic hour, which is the time before sunrise and after sunset. And we have the golden hour, which is right the moment of the before the sunset, very close to that moment, because it's all the sky and the clouds, if there are any clouds in the sky, they are colored in yellowish red, either if it's sunrise or sunset. So that specific moment before the sunset and right after before the sunrise and right after the sunset, it's called golden hour. And the other one, it's called blue hour, because the atmosphere, it's getting bluer and bluer as the sun is getting lower over the horizon. So we have those three specific moments in which we can shoot and make different atmospheres, like magic hour, which is let's say the blue hour, and golden hour, which is before right before sunrise and right after the sunset, and then of course the moments of the sunset and the sunrise. During the day, the color temperature of the lights of the sunlight is changing very abruptly. So we have values in this moment of the sunrise and the sunset which are close to 3000 kelvins. So that means, as a reference of what I've said before, if we balance the camera at 3200, the light, the sunlight on the sun on sunrise or a sunset time will be very neutral, which is not the case in these moments, of course. Getting further on, the atmosphere of the golden hour and as well the blue hour, it is shown as it's called golden or blue if the white balance is not properly balanced with the moment. So the differences between those very close moments in the daytime, blue hour, golden hour, and sunrise, let's say it is in between 2000 kelvins, because we have these values all around there. We have these values of the white balance the color temperature of the sunrise, which is around 3000 kelvins. And right before that, on blue hour, we have the color temperature, which is around 4500 kelvins. And then during the day, from the sunrise to the sunset, we have this changing the color temperature very abruptly during the sunrise and the sunset. And then after that, let's say half an hour after the sunset, the color temperature goes to a very, let's say, even peak or level, which is around 5000 and goes up to 5600. Sometimes when it's overcast and cloudy, this color temperature can be even higher, can go up to 6000 and something. On the northern hemisphere or on the southern hemisphere, when during the summer the azimuth of the sun is not so high, and all the sky, which is very blue, it's reflected to the scene we're shooting. The color temperature of the day, it's also high, because the skylight itself sometimes can go up to 10,000 kelvins, which is a very high color temperature. Of course, that the influence in the colors can be also adjusted in the post-production, and we will have tomorrow this topic on post-production, and you'll see how easily it is to change the overall look by adjusting the hue, the saturation, and the values of the colors in the midtones, highlights, and shadows. So those three levels of densities and values can be adjusted very easily in the post-production during these color correction softwares, and you can do it on each one, like I said it before, shadows, midtones, and highlights, or you can do it overall, just add a little hue or a different color overall, make it like looking totally different than we thought we can make it. In this course, I just somewhere here, yeah. I went through this part of the color rendering and how those colors are used and seen during the day, and I will again share that screen with you. You can find it in the document. I just put it on the platform, and you can see it here as a values of color temperature during the day, or not only the day. We start on this value, which is the sunrise or sunset, and go up to the ultra daylight, which is the value of the sky itself reflected on the scene. So in between those values, which starts with candlelight or any flame, if it is a match or candle, we start from 1500 and we go up to 6500 plus. So as I told you before, the sky on the northern hemisphere in the summer, or in the southern hemisphere in the winter, it's getting very bluish, and that's it's shown in the picture as an overall tint, which influence the way of seeing the scene. So as a approach of what I just mentioned, we can change the overall look of a scene just by turning a knob, and this will affect, of course, the feeling of the interior atmosphere on this, let's say, daylight situation. Yeah, we have a worksman inside his workshop and is doing whatever he's doing there. And the time of the day and the light effect, which is shown inside, it's very depending on how the color inside this workshop and the values of those colors are shown in the picture. So we have an overall look which is warm. We have brown and dark brown and red and yellow, which in a way it's getting on that stylistic approach, which says we're doing an analog color scheme with very close colors on the color wheel, and by changing that direction, it will change also the harmonically composed environment through this kind of very different approach, which sometimes is getting very unnatural for the viewer. So the viewer doesn't buy this atmosphere very bluish, only if we prepare that before and not just showing it like that. So it's very unpleasant way of perceive a daylight, an interior daylight sunny day, because you can see it, it's a very sunny day. Of course, this is all set lights, it's not sun itself. And during this lighting scheme and color rendering scheme, the opposition between yellow and red and grays and beige and whatever, it doesn't work very well with this bluish tint, because the blue with the opposite colors are receding themselves. So what does that mean? It means when we look at the color wheels, which are also shown here, we see that's the pigmenter in painting color wheel, and this is in a cinema color wheel. We can see how the opposite colors are working by receding themselves from each other. So when we go close to the middle here, we will have there a gray patch, not yellow or blue. Like we're going to the yellow, it's going to be more yellowish. When we go to the blue, it's going to go more bluish. When we go on this axis here, somewhere in between, not very specifically in the middle, we'll have neutral gray. The neutral gray means the values of those two colors are very balanced. And because yellow is a very bright color and is perceived as it is very bright color, the neutral gray, it will be more close to the blue. It's not going to be here, because as a percentage or a complementary values of those two colors, the yellow, it's twice as bright as the blue. So as I told you, when we adding and overlapping those two colors, the neutral gray will be more around here and not in that center, as I mentioned before. So that's kind of how those the colors are working in opposition as a complementary or primary colors. The primary colors in the additive system, which are red, green, blue, they have the three complementary, which are primary in the subtractive system, magenta, yellow, and cyan. And those three primary colors in subtractive are the main colors in print. Of course, CMYK, it means cyan, magenta, yellow, and the K means black. It's used to adjust the values of the darkest patches, which are not we're not getting there by just overlaying those three pigments. And also as a way of underlying some contrast, because a picture or a movie without any contrast is going to look dull. We have to take and pay attention to how the colors and the hues are shown in our picture. And in 19th century, Michel Chevreul, which was a French chemist who worked at the Gobelin factory in Paris, the one that had been making the small Gobelin. He was studying the interaction of the colors and how those colors are, let's say, better underlined or not that well on regarding the surrounding we'll see around them. And he discovered this effect called the law of simultaneous contrast, which means that if you put side by side two saturated colors, the eye, it's adjusting the hue, the saturation, and the brightness of this area according with the proportions and the space with seeing color in those hues. So sometimes when we have very saturated colors like primary colors, let's say red, green, blue, or even complementary like yellow and blue, or green with magenta and cyan with red, the overall saturation of these those two patches, they're going to be shown lower because of how we see those interactions and how we adjust the saturation of those patches being close by. And he experimented a lot of different situation in how to adjust the colors they've been put in the goblins, because the goblins are, of course, if you know, very small knots and different colors, like a small painting, but not painted by just do sewing. And he was studying this, and he realized that if we want to make a little patch stand out from, let's say, the background will see that patch on, we have to make it as a hue in his complementary color. So as you can see on those three patches here, let's say gray patches, which are not really gray, just the middle one, it's neutral gray. We can see how the hue of this patch will make it look pop up better on this background, only by getting a little more complementary color in it. This is a little bluish surrounded by an orange, and this is very orange surrounded by an orange. So this is more like a it's not very contrasty situation, because we don't have any differences in colors and hues. This is a neutral one, and this is the one which has the highest contrast. I'm talking about the color contrast in between those three. But you can check the course, and you'll see that in okay. So getting back to this topic with I'll open up again that, sorry, I'll get back to this Kodak. Sorry a bit. Okay, sorry, I've been called. Okay, so talking about these different colors and how they are interacting in the, and how the colors are formed. Of course, I told you about additive and subtractive way of producing the colors, and that's the only things and the structure which the colors are being produced in film and video and photographs as well, and print and so on and so forth. So the differences between what we know from painting is that we talk about light overlaying here and producing those kind of colors and not pigments. Yeah, in the painting we have pigments like in the subtractive, but the subtractive itself, it's working in a pair as a pair of additive system, which is this one. And as you can see, it's mixing together those three colors. We produce yellow by mixing red with green, cyan, green with blue, and magenta, blue with red. So the most striking one, which is produced here, is of course yellow, because nobody will see or accept it from the painting that yellow as a primary color being produced by overlaying and just combine two other primary colors, which are red and green. So as I showed you the graph before, in the painting, the primary colors, of course, they are red, yellow, blue, and the definition of those primary color is not how they are overlaying or how they're producing the complementary or secondary colors. It's just the pigment itself cannot be produced by mixing the other two colors, and the primary color is that color which is obtained just by itself, and you can't really produce it by combining any two other colors. So in this situation here, not sure if you can still see it, I hope so. We can overlay three lights, and then in the negative, the layers are cyan, magenta, and yellow, and all together they're forming this colors. Yeah, so we have two different specific systems of producing colors. One is additive and the other one is subtractive. Nowadays, because the digital technology is all over, these subtractive colors is not still, it is in a way still working on shooting on negative, on color negative film, but otherwise all the colors which are being produced now as a picture or a moving picture, they are produced by in the additive system. The additive system means that we have, as I told you before, in the sensor, we have two green pixels, one red, one blue. And by mixing all those three RGB pixels, we obtain any colors in the visible spectrum. And of course, what we want to project on laptops or television or even on the cinema screens, which now are digitally projection. Now they're not anymore analog projection. So in an analog time, all those systems work together, and from the capturing time on the negative color negative film or black and white film, wherever, all the workflows they've been accordingly with this subtractive system. Nowadays, only when we shoot on film, we'll still use the subtractive system, which is based on cyan, yellow, and magenta, and then we convert this color space to RGB. So all we can see now being produced as a image here is it's a photograph, not printed. Have that in mind. So all the prints are CMYK. So otherwise, all the image which is produced and seen on laptops, televisions, phones, or cinema screens are in this RGB system, and they are, of course, closely related with the technology of capturing and then post-producing and delivering the movie, the film, the whatever we want to deliver. Okay, so the white balance. No, I will share something related with I'll show you now another video, which is shot in Brussels, in the film school there, a long time ago. And they made, by the time, these exercises like taking an example of a picture, of a painting, sorry, and then trying to reproduce it during the exercise by changing, or at least trying to making as close as possible to the painting itself. And I think it was a very nice approach, because he was playing with this, let's say, atmosphere and way of rethinking the space of the painting during this exercise, which back to that days was entirely made on film. Of course, it's very hard to understand now why it's so difficult to make it on film, but it's a different workflow, and it's hard to do things which today are very easily to achieved through the digital technology. So this is the painting, and it's of course one of the painters who made it. It's from the Baroque era in the paint 17th century, I think. Anyway, and I'm not turning on the sound because it's in French and it's going to be confusing. And what I'm trying to reproduce it here, it's the atmosphere, the mood of the scene, by using only one light source, which of course in a painting is very easy to show. In a real time, in a real life, and in film shooting, it's a totally different situation. And I'll try to jump on. So the logic of the single source within this space is that this source itself, it's making all the atmosphere by lighting the space around and the the way of how the intensity and the quality of that light will emphasize all this environment here. So, of course, as a basic rule in the physics, the distance from the source will affect how the intensity is changing. Yeah, and it's the famous rule, which is called the inverse square law, which says as far as you can go from a light source, the intensity drops from 1 meter to 2 meters by a fourth. So we have just a quarter of the intensity when we get to from 1 meter to 2 meters from the same light source. And now, as a relevance of reality, or what we try to make it out of the intensity of the light source itself, of course, when we look at a source and judge it, comparing with the effect which throws on the environment, this effect, it's very important to be credible, to be realistic. And when we overexpose the lamp, of course, it looks too bright for this atmosphere inside the composition. If we underexpose, of course, it looks odd, and it's of course not very pleasant to see something which don't believe it will throw some intensity and direction light on the guy who's sitting next to it. So in a way, not only comparing with the original painting, this atmosphere is more the one which is more credible in this situation. And then we will see how many lights have been used to, let's say, give that feeling of the same atmosphere and credibility in this situation. So any lights which you see now being lit, there are different lights which are adjusting the contrast and makes the intensity and the direction of how we see and call the main source, which is inside the composition, and it's omnidirectional lights. So it's just throw the lights all around. So it has to light as well the window part of the room and the surface of the desk here. And as you can see it, the main light, the key light, is not coming from the same direction. It's coming from outside the composition here, the one we just seen being turned on. So those two are just getting the feeling of proximity from the light here. And the third one, which is the key light, it's coming from outside the composition. It's not coming from the same direction, from the same position. All the rest are just adjusting the contrast and the feeling of space and all these relations between intensity, direction, quality, and intensity, of course. It was a very interesting exercise because the students were trying to simulate the same atmosphere by trying to make it as close as possible to the original. And then, of course, some of the situation, they've been very, very different, like this one, let's say, because in a real time, in a real life, as we shoot it without any visual effects, you can't really do the, we just jump over it. It's just a made situation, made in by shooting it once with half of the picture, and then the film was reversed and then shot again with a reflection in the water. So it's just a visual technique which has been used from the Méliès time at the beginning of the last century, and it's very effective because it's made and it's shot on the same negative. Of course, the reflection now in the water is not changed like in the original painting, because in the original painting, his face in the water was wrinkled and old. He wasn't young and beautiful Narcissus. But here they just thought about we can make it looking different, because it's making that shivering, wavering water, and his reflection is disappearing from the water, which is also a nice approach. Of course, most of the paintings which they've been used, and I choose that as an example in my course, it's they're mainly with the light in the composition. So the source itself, even if it's a candle or a lamp, like an example before, they're all seen inside the composition, and all the atmosphere is based on that light, and how the effect and the intensity, it has to be done with this little example and detail in mind. So we have this inverse square law situation, which says as close as you are from the light, the brightest you are, like here. And this guy here, of course, it's not that bright because it's as a distance as twice as far from the candle. Let's go further on. Of course, there are a lot of gags and tricks to rig a candle, and those gags and tricks have been worked and used all over the time for shooting. Of course, we have a very famous example in Barry Lyndon, when Kubrick and John Alcott, the DOP, decided to use a very wide T-stop lens, the one which have been used in Apollo mission on the moon. And despite the time which we used, or the lenses has the widest stop was 2 or 2.2. That lens had 0.7, which was a very impressive and different intensity when we use it from the 2 to 0.7. There are 3 T-stop difference, which as an intensity means 8 times less intensity. As you can see it here, the light effect, which usually it's in a painting, it's based only on the candle. It has to be here reproduced with 3 different lights, which are coming from different directions, and they are, let's say, trying to reproduce the light effect which the candle might make it in this composition. Yeah. And this is only one example. I was talking about the Barry Lyndon, and maybe you've seen the movie. It's Stanley Kubrick with John Alcott was the DOP of it. And there's some famous scenes during this movie. One of those have been shot only on at the candlelight intensity and only with candlelight sources. And that, of course, it was a very complicated approach because of the technical difficulties which they had on the shoot. The film was shot in 76 or 77. And of course, by the time, the only available technology was the analog technology. So the same as here, as how they make this effect credible, and they used one little trick. They hide behind this guy, a light source, which made this whole atmosphere. And of course, the quality of this light, not only the direction, intensity, and the color reproduction, it has to be, of course, very warm, like I just show you on that color temperature graph. The color temperature of the candlelight, it's close to 1500, which is totally different than 30 to 100, which is a tungsten bulb white balance. So they had to filter with some orange filters, which drops the color temperature of the light closer to that 2000 kelvins. Either way, this kind of situation and composition, it's a little easier to make it because they just hide that light source behind this guy here, and that made all these effects credible. Okay, so it's a nice approach, and it's good for training the students, training to see the things differently than in real life, because of course the arts or the way of think we're doing art or photograph or movies, it's a totally different approach, and we have to do that and think about it and do it properly, not to make it or spoil the things which have been showed or told in the video itself. Okay, so any question if you have, please tell me.
Hello, Alex. Just about warm and cool colors.
Yeah.
What could you say? How could we warm the cool color? I mean, for example, blue.
Well, if you use the daylight, if you want to compensate that daylight color temperature to a warmer one, there are some color compensating filters. I will show you. Let me check on the. Which are called compensating. Let me just go to. The range. Anyway, I will send you the link. So there are a lot of gel filters, which all the professional.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I received it.
Yeah. So either Lee or Roscoe, I will search the Roscoe as well. You can buy it from their website, or you just order to local dealer. They're based on different areas.
Okay.
And
I will look up to it.
Roscoe. Yeah, you can buy from eBay or Amazon. They're all over.
Okay, that would be easy. Thanks.
So the other one is leaffilters.com. I will put it here. And it's called color compensating filters because they are correcting the differences between daylight and tungsten, which is a very orangey tint filter. And the other way around, from tungsten to daylight, it's of course a blue filter. But sometimes, I mean, most of the time, the intensity of those light sources are reduced by half. So when we put a blue filter over a tungsten, the intensity drops by a stop. So you just have this, you have to have this in mind. When you want to correct those lights, the intensity drops pretty dramatically. So that's one of the drawbacks, let's say it. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to see you again today. That's a good news. We'll still see you again tomorrow from 1 again. Okay. Have a nice evening and see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock again.
So see you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Bye.